Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to ICF Coaching Conclave India 2021, ITOS. This is Krishnan, your host for today, along with Natarajan, along with Priyanka and Viji. We welcome you to this wonderful session, which is a coaching masterclass for leaders. If you can't coach, can you really manage? To do that, we have a wonderful person today with us. I thought I'll do the introduction a little differently. If you can just focus on the chat box, I've got a quote. Can you go through? How do we let go of judgment? Unless we spend years gaining the enlightenment of a Buddhist master, we have to accept a lifelong journey with this one. It's part of our human condition to judge others, but the trick is to notice when you're doing. These wise words come from the person who is going to be actually handling this masterclass. That's Julie Starr, an expert and thought leader in the field of coaching since 2002. Her best-selling book, The Coaching Manual, has supported the evolution of coaching field through simple, powerful principles and practical approaches. Julie's book for managers and leaders, Brilliant Coaching, and the Mentoring Manual enable the improvement of business performance while developing the people. Her books are required reading on coach training programs around the world. With over 20 years and thousands of hours of coaching experience, Julie supports CEOs and executives from some of the world's best-known organizations. Her approach is challenging, compassionate, and empowers clear leadership. Julie is also a featured coach in the Netflix Leap coaching movie. She's a passionate speaker, lecturing in universities and at industry conferences to support growth and excellence in the field. She's the MD of Starr Coaching, a leading provider of coach training in organizations. The other side is that she writes novels for young adults, donates the proceeds to charities which house, heal, and educate street children and orphans. Check out www.roughdogbooks.com. That's Julie for you. Welcome, Julie.
Hello, thank you. I'm having a good time already.
That's nice. So a little bit about the session. This session is an opportunity for managers and leaders to develop their use of the coaching principles most relevant to their role. For example, to consider how they might adopt a less directive style and mindset when managing the activity and performance of others. Julie will explain the main areas of over-managing and how to avoid these, namely ego, a compulsion to fix things, a desire to be perceived as valid, valuable in conversations, a tendency to ask close questions. She will offer simple coaching models and ideas to raise self-awareness and provoke insight. She will also highlight key differences in terminology, example, coaching and mentoring. Mind you, that's coming from somebody who has written both the coaching manual and the mentoring manual. To gain maximum benefit from the session, attendees will bring an openness born from a clear intention to grow and learn. So with these words, Julie, the stage is all yours. One small request to participants. When she makes a presentation, please go on full screen mode so that you get the full view of the presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you. It's just hello everybody. Hello India. This is my visit to India this year. I think I have been to India every year for the last 8 years, sometimes more than once a year. And I'm not getting there this year. So you know, you're with me, I'm with you, but unfortunately I can't get to you. But yeah, India is a place very close to my heart. I visit your spiritual hotspots. So Varanasi, Amritsar, Tiruvannamalai, lots of dear places close to my heart. So really excited to be doing this with you guys today. Let's get started, or else I'll disappear into reminiscing about my good times in India. So if you can't coach, can you really manage? And hopefully by the end of this, I hope you will share the belief that no, you can't. To be a good leader, to be a good, effective manager in today's complex environment. These coaching skills, these conversational skills are absolutely key. So let's see if I can work the tech. Please grab a pen and paper. I tend to speak quite quickly. There may be things that I say that are completely irrelevant, but sometimes it helps just to grab a quick quote that might be pertinent to you. A little bit about me. I've been working with this topic of coaching in the workplace for almost 25 years by now, I think. I am a nut for all things self-development, well-being, happiness related. I think once you start on that path of inquiry, of personal inquiry into life, what makes us happy, successful, fulfilled, somehow you end up in India. I don't know how, but I ended up in India 9 years ago, and like I say, it's been a gorgeous place for me, and it's been a real enabler of lots of the information that I now express in the workplace. A lot of my work expresses the teachings and the philosophy that I have learned on that journey. So I have this company called Starr Coaching. We teach managers how to manage less, to be less directive, and coach their teams more. We've been doing this for a long time. We know it works. I have broad industry experience in large organizations, a range of sectors. I'll put some of those up in a while. The coaching manual is my best known book. It's used on lots of qualification courses around the world to teach managers, to teach coaches how to coach. So executive coaches, personal coaches, life coaches. The mentoring manual is about the work we do to support mentoring schemes in organizations, to have people mentor kind of across lines of the organization. Brilliant Coaching is the most relevant for you as a community. It's a shorter, bite-sized read. It's snappy, it's pacey, and it's intended to make these behaviors accessible to you. Acknowledging you're busy, you don't want to rub yourself out and draw yourself again as a coach. You simply want some conversational tricks, tips, ideas that can help you get more from people and help people get more from you. Okay, so these are some of the clients that we work with. I tried to put some of the better known ones on there. The main point to make here is, we have manufacturing, we have finance, we have logistics, we have luxury retail there, we have IT, and the key message is, no matter where we go, no matter what industry we're working with, in what situation, coaching, these conversational skills always have a part to play, whether that's to increase productivity, to increase engagement levels, to help develop talent, to help people generalize across a broader range of area of leadership. Coaching just works. It's a life skill. Let's have a look. So the purpose of this session is to help us all get clear about what coaching is and what it isn't within your role as a manager. I want to bust or get rid of a few common myths, common misunderstandings about coaching that we've learned along the way can trip people up as they start to try to coach. They get misunderstandings about it, and it stops them being able to coach. And also, hopefully, to help you realize that in order to thrive as a manager and leader, sometimes you need to coach. And along the way, hopefully, I'll get a chance to kind of point at this topic of the ego, because again, that's something I've been studying for years in India, that, meditating in caves, bathing in the Ganges, staying in ashrams. And it's a lot of what stops managers being able to coach, because the ego likes control. I think that's pretty obvious. Okay, what I thought we'd do is, given that we're all in a different circumstance, we're in a different time zone, let's just take a moment to kind of let go of whatever you've just been doing. Some of you will have skidded into this session having been dealing with perhaps things at home or other things at work, or you've just been, focused on a different task. Let's just take 60 seconds. We don't like doing this. The ego doesn't like slowing down. Let's just take 60 seconds just to get present. And This idea of becoming present can absolutely enable you to coach others, because in order to coach others, we need to create a space of listening, a way of being with somebody that is more centered and more grounded. So let's just take a minute and let me help you do that. Just get a sense of your physicality, get a sense of your feet on the floor, your legs, the weight of your body as you sit. Just start to tune in with being you in this body, in this moment in time, perhaps starting to realize you have a torso, you have a body, and turn your attention to your breathing, and perhaps just take a breath and notice how your breath can ground you in the present moment, and notice your shoulders. Perhaps just flex and roll your shoulders a little bit, just again to connect with, to say hello to this body that carries you around all day. And then perhaps your head, perhaps moving your head and your neck. And another, so hopefully now you will have reconnected with your sense of physicality in this present moment. Now there's a phrase or a couple of questions that I like to use just to have me be really present in a moment, and that is, where am I? What's happening? So just ask yourself that. You might just speak it out loud or just have the thought in your head. Where am I? What's happening? Look at your environment, check in, be here now, as Ram Dass would say. Be here now. Okay, so the other thought that I wanted to offer at this point, as you are turning your attention internally, is what are the problems, the challenges, the obstacles, the goals, the thing that you're dealing with in your role as a manager and leader right now? What do you want to change? What's confronting you? You know, is it busyness? Is it implementing change? Is it trying to get people to understand things? Is it trying to motivate a group of people? But just again, start to just notice and bring that awareness of that, because what I'm about to say will have a relevance to that in some way. And I don't know how that is, but this is a natural feature of you beginning to have an intention to get something from this. It's like, okay, if I could get something from this session that is relevant to my issue or my challenge at work right now, that would be a good use of my time. And if it helps just to write that down, like, you know, what would you change right now if you could? Please write that down. And what that does is that intention starts to generate an attention. So your intention will have your focus of attention as you are listening, and that will help you to get the most from what I'm saying. Because as I say, I'm going to speak about lots of different aspects of coaching, but there might be 2 or 3 ideas that can really help you immediately get some traction, get some momentum with your challenge. Okay, so coaching as a part of your role as a manager. This is all born, I'm confirming this, lots of you will know this already. This is born from this central idea of, as a manager, how are you exerting influence on your situations? How do you try and get people to do things, create change, whether that's directly in a conversation, in an email, on a telephone call, even in your thinking, your decision making? How do you influence? Are you directive? Do you act from the presupposition of I know how, I tell you, you comply or you follow instruction? Or do I encourage you from a sense of you know how, I can ask you and I can encourage you to decide? And obviously those are kind of the 2 opposite ends of the scale, and it's not either or. There are different things you can do along that scale. We'll talk about that later, but essentially this is the idea as manager, as a coach. learns these different styles of conversation that can help people think and act for themselves. How does this affect your relationships? Well, if you are highly directive, what you tend to generate in your work environment is a parent-child type of relationship where you decide things for people, you look after people, you parent people or nursemaid people. This other end of the scale is born from an adult presupposition, an adult sense of the relationship that says, I will speak to you as though you can be responsible, as though you are capable, and I believe and trust you to do things. Now, obviously, sometimes that's not true, and that it would be crazy to operate from that with some people that perhaps don't have the understanding or the knowledge. But basically, this is what you've got going on. So if you have teams where you feel you can't leave them, you feel you have to be there for every decision, you get anxious about having holiday because you don't know what's going to happen when you're not there, it could be that some of it is down to the way you've set up this parent-child relationship. Let's have a look. If you can't coach, how can you manage? So the modern manager, this contemporary context that we're operating in is hugely challenging for you. And we're under a different and changing time of pressure. The last 18 months, the rate of change and transformation that's been happening in how we work, where we work, what's happening, what are the pressures upon us in the environment. It's been an incredible time. You're often running virtual teams. You might be generalist, so sometimes you don't know, you don't have the technical knowledge that the teams that you're running have, so you have to be more generalist because you've got multidiscipline teams. You need to raise people's engagement levels, and ongoingly you need to raise people's emotional maturity, so their sense of responsibility, their ability to think and act for themselves. And it's useful just to, just write yourself down a quick self-awareness point of where do you think you are typically? Are you usually directive? Are you usually deciding for people? Are you usually coming up with the ideas and solutions? Do you feel you have a good balance? Or do you think you're hardly ever directive and you're encouraging a context where people can be successful and think through and decide and feel empowered? And just write that down. Our typical experience with working with managers and leaders in organizations is quite often we start to confuse being positively intentional for our team and caring as a manager, and we think we're coaching and we're not coaching. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. Here's myth number one. To coach people, you need to be kind, nice, or lovely. This is not true. Coaching is not determined by your style and your tone of conversation. Here's a manager being kind and highly directive. So, I might be a caring manager, and you might come to me with a problem, and I might say, okay, here's what might work for you, try this. Or why not speak to Anita about that? She's really good in situations like this. Or I tell you what I'd do if I were you. Or try doing this, it always works for me. Or I'll have a word with Anita. Let me see if I can help here. Now, I think I'm a good manager. I'm a caring manager. I'm looking after my team. I'm taking their problems from them. I'm being highly directive in those examples. Here's somebody being much less kind, less loving, less heart-centered, yet they're not being directive because it's what they're doing. So try this. I'm not interested on why this has all gone wrong. I just want to know, what's going to happen now? What needs to happen? Or, okay, please tell me what you're going to do to fix this. So there, I'm putting the problem back with you. I'm empowering you to say, what are you going to do about this? Or I could just say, yes. So what's the solution here? Now, I don't think anybody would encourage that tone or style because clearly there's another impact of that tone and style on people. The point is, I'm putting the problem back with you. So in the previous ones where I take the problem, I'm lovely, I'm kind, I sort it for you. In this one, I'm teaching you, okay, over to you, think, act, do it for yourself. Now, I'm not sure either of those examples are great management. I just want to illustrate the point. Your style, your voice, your personality, you can retain all of that and still be a really great coach. Myth number 2, coaching takes more time than just telling people what to do. So if I've got to ask people lots of questions about what they think they should do, if I've got to spend lots of time listening to them, it's long, it's boring. I can get to something quicker if I just tell them what to do. Now, of course, that can be true, especially when managers are first learning to coach. So when these behaviors and these ideas are new, you're less familiar to them, you are less elegant at how you're doing this, it can feel a bit clunky, a bit awkward, you don't get it right the whole time, that can take longer. So, you know, an unskilled manager trying to coach or a learning manager, yes, absolutely, coaching conversations tend to lengthen. What I would say is a really skilled coach can be really super expedient, and actually by asking a couple of great questions, making a few summaries or observations, can really nip and tuck a conversation pretty quickly. But the more important point is whether or not coaching takes longer depends on when you start and stop the clock. So when you start and stop the clock on one conversation where I could either tell you what to do, or I can ask you about the situation, I can expand on your thoughts, I can spend time listening. Yes, that might take longer, but actually over the lifespan of the relationship, over the lifespan of that issue, coaching can save time, because you are teaching a man to fish. You are helping someone think and act for themselves. You are helping them to coach themselves in a situation where they come back, where they arrive at a similar situation in future, and then they start to think for themselves, okay, if I go and speak to my manager about this, I know what they're going to say. They're going to say, okay, so what's important? What options have you got? What have you already tried? What are you considering doing? Who will that affect? What support do you need? You know, people start to coach themselves. So people less and less come to you. This is the parent-child versus adult point. People come to you less with those silly, small problems where they can learn to feel empowered. And don't, you know, when we're going after organizationally people to be, you know, to develop talent, to empower people, to engage people to think, you know, to have people act in a mature way, coaching is a direct access to that. And think about the kind of manager you would want to work for, what you would enjoy, and that then starts to speak to the same issue. I think we would all prefer to be spoken to as though we're an adult. Here's an important myth, a misunderstanding, that coaching means the manager can only ask questions and then you have to allow people to do whatever they want to do, which of course is madness. And this is where the ego starts to come up, because the ego obviously likes control, and the ego is saying, hang on, if I've got to sit with my hands folded or sit on my hands in a conversation and just let crazy ideas get implemented, that's not going to work for me. I need to come back in and be directive. And if you remember, here's what I was saying about there are different things to do between these 2 points. So at one point we have being directive, which is instructing people. At the other end of the scale, we allow somebody to be self-directed, so I decide. Now there are different behaviors that are more or less directive, and so sit at different places upon that scale. The least directive we can be in conversation is silence. Now it's another misunderstanding. People use this term non-directive, so I need to be non-directive. You can never be non-directive, because we are always communicating. So by the very fact that you have a facial expression or a posture, an attitude, a physicality, you are communicating, and you will be, you know, that can have some kind of influence on the person that you're speaking to, especially if you're senior to them in the organization. However, the least directive we can be is born from silence, is simply to let somebody have that space to think. We've obviously then got this ask, which is what people think coaching is, and sometimes they think that's all it is, and it isn't. That's not true. So this is, what are you going to do? What thoughts have you had? What options do you have? What needs to happen? It's all those simple questions to help somebody, you know, get clear, understand, have insight, and decide for themselves. We've got summary, which is obviously telling somebody, understand, listening to someone and saying, okay, here's what you've just said. You've just said that the meeting is going ahead as planned, but Hugo's not going to be there, and he's a key influencer. You can then say an observation. I notice you've spoken to most of the influencers that are going to be into the meeting, but not Hugo. So here you can see I'm becoming more directive, I'm becoming more pointed, I'm becoming more opinionated. There's more of me in the conversation than perhaps if I'm silent, or I just ask, or I just give a neutral, objective summary. And so you can see my influence is building. And of course, when we're skilled as a coaching manager, we can traverse up and down this scale. So you don't have to keep going in this direction. You can make an observation and say, I notice you've spoken to most of the influencers on the project, but not to Hugo. And they can say, yeah, that's true. And then you can move back to a question that just says, okay, so what's causing your resistance to speaking to Hugo? And then you can go back into more of a self-directed coaching mode. An opinion is more of you again, isn't it? It's you saying, I think this is what I think. I think without Hugo's support, this won't work. And then you can move back to making an observation or asking a question. Advice is a subtle one. Advice coming from a manager often sounds like an instruction. But it's worth pointing at as being less directive than an instruction that says, go and speak to Hugo. So you can see between those 2 points, we have these stepping stones that we can traverse. Now, so here's your immediate opportunity. Everybody can stay silent. Well, actually, that's not true, but it's, you have that available as a behavior. You're all good at giving advice, at being opinionated, at giving instructions, because you all have a level of experience of doing that. And conventionally, socially, we're used to doing that. The immediate opportunity for you that we find people tend not to use enough in conversation is summarize the key points of what someone's saying, ask simple open questions, or offer an objective observation. If you were just to get more practiced at doing that, immediately you would be a less directive manager, and you would start to encourage people to step forward in a conversation and volunteer more. The other thing that is true is people will start to feel more listened to. They'll start to feel more heard, and that's a demonstration of your respect for them. And so that's great for your relationship as well. It's certainly great for your engagement scores. This can also help you push back gently. So where somebody comes up with a crazy idea, you might say, okay, what needs to happen now? And somebody might say, well, I just need to let the meeting go ahead, and I just need to just trust that Hugo will come on board sooner. This can help you push back. So it can help you make an observation that says, okay, that appears like you're in hope. It appears like you're just being optimistic and in hope. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so then you can ask a question that says, what if that's not true? What if Hugo doesn't get on board? And so it can help you push back without going straight to directive and saying, no, that's a crazy idea, just go and speak to Hugo. So this can help you push back gently rather than doing what managers often do, which is thinking, okay, I'm asking lots of questions. This person's coming up with crazy ideas. I can't tolerate this any longer. I just need to tell them what to do. So it gives you some options there. So the core skills that enable you to coach, I wanted to show you this. This is from the brilliant coaching book that I was pointing at earlier. These are the competencies that we train managers and leaders to focus on, and we unpack these, and we help people enlarge their skills, enrich their skills, and then put them all back together again. The important thing to notice here is these are normal, everyday conversational skills. All coaching has done as a community, as a field, is kind of package up some beliefs that we operate from, some principles, some presuppositions that we operate from with people, such as, you know, people can think and act for themselves, or people can have great ideas, or if I encourage somebody, they can grow and develop more quickly than if I just keep firing answers at them. And these skills, these conversational skills that become life skills, that are useful anyway, you know, whether or not you're coaching. Building rapport and relationship, we need that for trust. Understanding the structure of a conversation, the beginning, the middle, and the completion stage, helps managers to navigate. So if you're asking the manager to do something differently in a one-to-one or in a team meeting or in a bite-sized conversation, managers need something to rest on to say, okay, here's my intention, here's what I'm doing, here's what I need to operate from in terms of principles. Because if all you've got is the idea of I need to just ask lots of questions, it's not going to help you navigate, and as a manager and leader, it's not going to give you the confidence to coach. You will revert to doing what you've always done, which is helping, advising, offering opinions. Focused listening, we talk about different levels of listening. We talk about cosmetic listening, conversational listening, active listening, deep listening. That almost becomes a meditative state. So again, we're looking at listening being a focus of intention and attention, and looking at the blend of those two things and how that creates a different space for the conversation with an individual. Effective questioning, we're encouraging people to operate from the idea that simple questions are best. So complex, clever questions confuse people. The simple questions are best, and kind of clever is not clever. Simple questions such as, you know, what's important about that? What's going to be the impact of that? What thoughts are you having about this? Those questions that people can use their effort and energy to understand their own thoughts to go into inquiry, rather than understand your clever, complicated question. Constructive feedback is, when we teach exec coaches and life coaches, we tend not to focus on this so much, but certainly within the role of managing performance of a manager and leader, constructive feedback, the ability to give performance-based messages to an individual in order to help them learn, develop, and grow, to shift and shape their behavior in constructive ways, is absolutely key. And coaching can really help that. So coaching helps us avoid those awful dialogues with people where somebody gets, you know, you have this soliloquy or lecture or negative message for somebody, and they just simply need to hear it and then go away and act on it, or you tell them what they need to do. You know, coaching behaviors obviously give us the confidence and the principles to operate from, so that those conversations can actually be enjoyable conversations. They can be engaging conversations. They're conversations where the other person is perhaps speaking more than you are, that you're not doing all the work in that conversation, that you're helping somebody else contribute. And again, over time, people learn, grow, develop, and they respect you an awful lot more as a manager. Okay, where have we got to? Yes, so this became, as we began to teach managers these skills, we realized that mindset, what goes on in terms of your beliefs, your thoughts, your ideas, what it means to be a manager, are absolutely key. And whilst we can teach somebody how to ask great questions or to listen in a different level of listening, if your mind, your ego is still saying, but I need to be in control, but I need to be in charge, then that becomes the blocker. So your mindset, your positive mindset, your open mindset is the gateway to you building the ability to do this very quickly. So here's a manager's mindset that leads to a directive style. This is what you think it means to be a manager. So if I think good managers stay in control, they do the right thing, I need to display my intelligence and experience, I'm expected to make the decisions, other people don't know as much as I do, I need to help people by fixing things for them, or it's down to me. then here's what you will do. Here's the skills you'll develop. Here's the behaviors you will use more often. You'll fix things. You'll give people solutions. Your listening will be to confirm your own thinking or hypothesis. Like, I think this is about this. I'm listening for this type of situation. Here's what I think is going on. Let me confirm this. And you will reduce your question to statement ratio. So you will literally ask less questions. You will make more statements. You will give more opinions. You'll jump in quickly with, here's what I think. You'll take charge of situations quickly, and quickly you'll start to display your own knowledge. Here's the ego again, isn't it? It's like, oh, let me tell you what I know. Let me put something of myself in this situation. And you'll feel a pressure to maintain a position of perfection, whatever that means. So, in a team meeting, you'll be the one that needs to come up with the best idea, the best solutions, because you've got this mindset of, it's up to me. I need to know. I'm the most senior person in my team. You can see the parent-child stuff coming in there as well, can't you? So here's the mindset that we're encouraging that enable you to operate from a less directive style. And it's important to say, the slide that I've just shown isn't wrong. That's not bad. It's just not the only thing you can be doing. Here's what I think. If I think my team relationships are based on equality, yes, I have my role as the leader of this team, and as people, we are all equal here, and I have as much mutual respect for everybody as I hope they have, for me. My subordinates can generate effective solutions. I look for that. I filter for that. I look to encourage, a bit like you would encourage your own children to shine and be bright. I look for people to shine and be bright, and I delight when that happens. This is the joy. We love teaching this stuff because managers just actually love it. When you can give them access to it, to being able to do it and it working. I need to create the context in which other people can perform and be successful. Again, that's more of an egoless state, isn't it? It's more of a service mentality that says, my job is to create the conditions where people can thrive. They have what they need. They have the training they need. They have the technical stuff that they need. They have what they need in order to perform really well. They're clear. They know what they need to do. Part of my contribution is to grow and develop people, which means I make my team meetings more important. I make my one-to-ones more important. I make giving performance feedback, constructive, helpful feedback, learning messages important. And we are successful together. So this is an interdependent mindset, not an independent mindset. The other manager, as we just shown it, that can be quite an isolated position. It's an independent mindset. This is an interdependent. I am connected. We are one. Here's what I do. I encourage people to think and act for themselves. I focus on the person. So we have this mantra, which is coach the person, not the issue. If I'm listening for the problem to solve the problem, that's what I'll end up doing. If I'm looking at the individual, if my focus of attention and intention is on the individual, then I'm more likely to support their thinking, what they can do. Again, it's a perceptual shift that's very powerful. My questions are to provoke productive inquiry. I challenge subjectivity into interpretations or false limits. This is using the stepping stones model. I can make observations. I can point at things. And I use facilitation skills to support the process of a conversation. Again, these are life skills. These are conversational skills. These are just useful for people to have, working together in organizations generally. Okay, so conscious of time, I wanted to give you an opportunity now, before we go into kind of 10 minutes of Q&A, just to have a moment to think, okay, I've downloaded a lot of information and ideas. If we go back to the challenges that you're struggling with at work right now, the goals you have, what's most relevant? And just write down a few ideas or points that you think, okay, I want to remember this because that seems relevant for me. I'm just reading some of your comments and smiling. I just realized I have a big ego. I want to talk about that because that's not quite true. Okay, so just write yourself down some things. Just to pick up that gentleman's point about, I just realized that it's Rajesh. Yeah, hello, Rajesh. We have this common phrase, which is this person has a big ego, small ego, or they're egoless, which, you know, let's hope. It's scale, size is less relevant to describe the function of the ego. What's more relevant is the notion, how much influence is your ego having upon you in conversations or situations? So, you know, how strong is your ego? How influential is your ego? And if you think about ideas such as how able are you to apologize or admit you're wrong or to be vulnerable in situations, those are all signs of a reduced strength ego, let's say. I know that's not a common phrase to use, but it's saying you've managed to just soothe this ego, this egoic influence. You've managed to soothe that, which is why meditation or self-inquiry or self-awareness, these emotionally mature ideas, are all super relevant and will make you a better coach, because you can imagine there is an exposure that happens with when we start to coach, which is where, because you've given up this toolkit of solving things, telling people what to do, you know, you put this toolkit down, all that stuff, and so you're vulnerable a little bit because you're in uncharted territory. This is new for you. This is, you know, fresh perspectives, and that can feel destabilizing, can't it? And so there is something about soothing the ego that can help. Ego is obviously a function of the mind. I'm encouraging soothing the ego rather than going to war with the ego, because as many of you will know, in a war with the mind will always win. Okay, so I think we're nearly there. We are nearly there. We're at the questions. So I think we've got 10 minutes allotted time. Krishnan, you're going to navigate some questions for me, I think.
That's right. But before doing that, let me just go back to when I introduced you. I mean, the session. I said difference between the terminologies like coaching versus mentoring.
Yes.
I have a very slightly funny question. You wrote a book called the Coaching Manual and then another book called the Mentoring Manual. Did you at least use a different table?
A different table?
To sit and write?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, because I lived in a different house at the time.
So what's the difference between the two?
So people get confused at behavioral level on the difference. So they want to know, what does a coach do that a mentor doesn't do? And what does a mentor do that a coach doesn't do? So they get confused at that behavioral level. And then they'll say things like, okay, a coach never gives advice or ideas. A mentor, it's okay to do that. And then, because they want to give ideas, they'll say, okay, so I'm combining the approaches of coaching and mentoring, which is basically, I want to be able to tell people what to do and still have it be a good thing. However, the difference and distinction between the two one-to-one activities is less about behavior and more about the nature of the relationship. So the nature of the relationship between a mentor and the person that they're mentoring has an exchange, has a synergy of benevolence and respect. So benevolence on the part of the mentor towards the person that they're mentoring, and respect from the person being mentored to the other end to the person mentoring them. And with respect, we get influence. Now, how I realized that was to go right back to the genesis of mentoring. So, you know, in Homer's The Odyssey, there's the original mentor character that's left to look after his master's son. And so you've got an older, wiser person counseling, supporting, giving guidance to a younger person. But the dynamic of benevolence and respect is there. Now, when we transcend that, when we transport that into the work situation, we start to change it, we start to edit it, we start to amend it, and this is where the issues can lie. But also, it's a practical thing to do. The real challenge is not to distinguish between coaching and mentoring. It's to help a manager know the difference between managing and mentoring, because a manager knows how to manage. When you give them the task of mentoring, when they get confused with the one-to-one interaction and don't realize what their job is to do, which is to guide, to support, to empower, to inspire, when they don't realize, when they're not navigating from clear principles, they don't suddenly start coaching them, they start mentoring them. So they start managing them rather. So the important thing is for a manager to understand the difference between managing and mentoring, or training and mentoring, or consultancy and mentoring, because those are the more similar activities. Is that helpful?
It is.
It's about the dynamic of the relationship. And for every adaptation of the pure archetype of the mentor role, for every adaptation creates a potential corruption of the potential of the role. So what I mean by that is where organizations suddenly start to put mentors in charge of the performance framework, or help contribute to somebody's bonus, then you've corrupted the pure potential of the role.
Thanks, Julie. There's a related question from Bharat Kalyanram, where he asks, isn't coaching versus managing a situational question, less of a style?
What's the question, Krishna?
Isn't coaching versus managing a situational question and less of a style of the manager?
So is the question, when do you coach and when do you manage?
Yes, the point he makes is that whether a person coaches or manages, it depends on the situation rather than on the person who does it.
Okay, so thank you. We can't coach knowledge. So if you know something and the other person doesn't know that, it's pointless asking. If you don't know what the capital of Bolivia is, it's pointless me asking you what's the capital of Bolivia. However, I could, depending on what I think is you, the situation, your potential, your appetite for learning and growth, I might say, okay, how could you find out? I'm using a silly example, but if it was an organization, what is my mandate for making decisions around contracts? If I know that, I should really tell you, because it's knowledge. The other time that you would be more directive or more kind of managing, controlling of a situation might be where people are stressed, they are under pressure, they are less confident. Me asking you lots of questions or putting the pressure upon you of you deciding what's the best thing to do in an important situation that you're stressed about, that you're not so confident about. Sometimes this is why, both of those management mindsets, neither's wrong and neither's right. Sometimes giving clear direction, clarity, using your insight in a situation to cut through quickly when there's pressure around it, that's exactly what's needed. And that's good, inspiring leadership that engenders trust and confidence in the people that work for you. The point is, if all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If that's all you can do, that's all you will do, and you will argue for doing that. So you will say, oh, this person needs me to tell them. This is what they expect, or this person's not so confident. Well, maybe and maybe not. Our experience is, 80% of your team will thrive if you start to coach them more. Some people freak out with it a little bit at first. It can help to explain what you're doing and why your style of conversation might change. But yeah, once you've got the skills, then you can start to develop the wisdom to understand this person is going to thrive. This other person, they're too new, they're not confident. I need to support their confidence and their self-esteem right now.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay.
Another interesting question is people generally repeat the behavior they have learned or received from their managers. How does a manager break this vicious circle? I mean, they are also conditioned because the manager behaves in a certain way.
Yes. I think this is a real challenge. What we find is when people are going out of training and we're trying to support them to integrate this going forward, this becomes a real test for people because it's their internal sense of unwillingness to change, their kind of egoic fixations that are saying, okay, I'm now not sure how to start to behave differently and give different examples. And so we have this saying, which is we can be overt or covert. So overt means you can declare, you can share, you can explain to people, here's what I'd like to do. I think this could work really well for us as a team. I would like to create this context in which you feel more supported to act. And that can work. Or we can be covert, which means we're not sharing what we're trying with the team, or we're not sharing and being open, fully disclosed about that. But instead, we start to just try a few different behaviors in a few different situations with a few different people. So we always say set a low bar. So rather than completely change, just set a low bar. Try listening a little bit longer, speaking a little bit less, asking a few simple questions, writing down your favorite questions, asking a few more simple questions, making observations more easily or more quickly than, or more readily than giving advice and instruction. Just seeing what giving a summary in a situation might do for you.
That was a question from Mayur Swarna. I'm moving to the next.
Okay.
Interesting one from Aparna Ponappa. What's the reason there is no significant shift in introducing coaching skills as an integral part of management development? What can we do to trigger this?
Can you ask that again? I'm not just...
Okay.
What is that?
What is the reason? One second, it's moved.
Yeah.
What is the reason there is no significant shift in introducing coaching skills as an integral part of management development? What can we do to trigger this? Are there figures in ROI of investing in teaching coaching to all managers?
Yes. So for anybody wanting to introduce coaching in the conversation into the organization, what we advise is make coaching the how behind the what organizations already want to do. So what I mean by that is make these behaviors the link, the enabler for the organizational goals. So rather than randomly bring it in a box and say, we should be doing this because it's great and everyone is going to love it, to think, okay, what are our performance challenges right now? What are we struggling with? Is it that we've gone to a virtual location team? Is it that we are struggling to retain talent? Is it that we are introducing matrix management, or is it that we're restructuring, we're losing a lot of our workforce and we need to make more of the people we've got? So make those clear links between what coaching enables people to do and what they already want to do. Because when people see coaching as the enabler of what they already want to do, then you're selling something to somebody that wants exactly that, because you've given them a solution. The other thing that I would say is be willing to let go of the term coaching, because coaching can mean lots of things to lots of people. For some people, it's tea and sympathy. It's therapy type conversations, or it's life coaching. It's about losing weight and changing your life. Be ready to just talk about conversational skills, or better business conversations. We're running a large program for an organization in Europe at the moment, and we're really reducing the use of the word coaching, and instead we're talking about better business conversations, because that's what people want. Nobody wants to be a coach. I understand that.
That's interesting. You also, in a sense, answered the next question, which is about cascading culture of coaching in the workplace, so that changes are introduced, changes which come in are less directive.
Yes.
Okay, another dimension to this. Where does agile coaching fit in?
Say that again, Krishnan.
Where does agile coaching,
Where does a day coaching?
agile,
A style.
agile, agile,
Oh, agile coaching. Aha. Thank you. Sorry.
where does agile coaching fit in?
Agile coaching. So we teach two forms of coaching as a competence. One is what I would call offline coaching, offline situations. So that could be one-to-ones, it could be team meetings, it could be a conversation where we've scheduled it, we're having a set piece conversation. We call that offline coaching. And we give people a structure for that conversation called the coaching path. And then we have what's more agile coaching, which is coaching in the live environment as the action is happening. So as I'm spontaneously in a call with somebody and I want to have a coaching response rather than a directive response. And so we have a routine called response coaching, which is a simple 3-step response that helps people just to shift their attention in a conversation. So absolutely, it's possible to have bite-sized conversations that have a coaching impact on an individual. And within Brilliant Coaching, you'll read about something called response coaching, which is that. So absolutely, coaching becomes a way of being rather than a set piece formula for an offline conversation. And so it should be, because these set pieces aren't the major part of your day. These online, I don't mean online, I mean like online live environment type conversations, and also in emails as well. You can coach in the written form as much as you can the verbal form.
Thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
I just have time for one more question, and
Okay.
I'll take Anuradha San's question. Isn't what you just spoke about is somewhat similar to situational coaching model 2 by Ken Blanchard? Do you see some parallels here?
I don't know the model. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Fine. So,
but it sounds similar, doesn't it? It's situational, isn't it? It sounds
that's
similar.
right. That's right. Okay. So we have come to the end of the session. We have just a couple of minutes, so which let me use to thank Julie for this wonderful session.
You're very welcome.
There have been requests for your presentation. So if you're willing to share it as part of the goodie bag, please do. I mean, every participant gets a virtual goodie bag, in which
Okay.
if you do want to share your presentation, that will be very, very helpful.
Okay.
Otherwise, yes, we have had a wonderful 1 hour, which took us through what you promised and more than what you promised. And thanks for answering all the questions.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed it. It's nice to be with India.
That's right. So this, let me also, my friend Puneet Mehrotra immediately said that, yeah, Varanasi, that's where I live.
Varanasi, wow.
So
I had an experience in Varanasi. Wow. Yeah, incredible place.
So welcome again to India. Welcome again to Varanasi.
Thank you.
And let me also thank the team of HOS. We had Natarajan and we have Priyanka who supported us. I'll be failing in my duty if I don't thank the sponsors and partners who have made this whole fantastic coaching conclave possible. So thank you everyone for being part of this. The entire 190 people who were here for most of the time, thank you
Wonderful.
so much, and a very good evening to you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Julie.
Bye. Thank you for having me.